Hello and welcome to another episode of the Popcorn Conspiracy. I'm Dave G, and joining me right now is my co-host.
Hello everybody, I'm Kyle.
And tonight we're looking at one of the most unusual films to have surfaced this year. It's the Scandinavian film called Lamb, which of course had a lot of attention go its way because of the fact that it starred Noomi Rapace. Noomi Rapace is one of those actresses that, while she's made it in Hollywood, she likes to go back to Scandinavia and make Scandinavian films from time to time as well. Now, this film is directed by Valdemar Johansson. And like I said, it's a very, very strange film. It's actually a strange film to even try to describe. Basically, it's about a childless couple, Maria, Noomi Rapace, and Ingvar, played by Hilmar Snare Gugnason. And a weird kind of event happens on their farm, and the result is a very, very strange child, which we'll talk about a little bit later on. Now, they're happy bringing up their strange little child, but then all of a sudden, Ingvar's brother, Peter, played by Bjorn Hilner Haraldsson, turns up, and he kind of highlights how weird it is with their kid. And there's also like a little bit of a byplay there as well, because as it turns out that he has been interested in Maria before Ingvar was on the scene. So there's a little bit of byplay there between the three of them as well. But I'll throw it open. What did you think of Lamb? Because this is a strange, strange film.
Oh yeah, man. I was very torn on this movie because like it's a very weird one. It's one that's very odd to talk about. I am a huge fan of Noomi Rapace though, and I have been like ever since the Girl with the Dragon Tattoo. So pretty much any movie that she's in, I'm interested to check out, and sometimes that's something that is really great, like Angel of Mine, and kind of like simple enough to understand. And then sometimes it's a really odd film like this. Like you say, she really does take on kind of all types of roles. I think it's an interesting movie to watch at least once, but I think it's one that's very, I guess it very kind of drags at points, and I feel like it's one that, while there was a purpose for it to be slow at the start, it never really ramped up its pace.
Yeah.
And while it's one that's going to be, I think is inevitably going to be described as a horror, I guess it doesn't really fall into any kind of traditional horror type film. But even on top of that, it's very different from other types of horror films that have been coming out lately from A24, like Midsommar or The Lighthouse.
Yeah.
It's kind of like them in one way, but it's also, I don't know, it's one that there's not really much, there wasn't really a whole lot in this movie to grab me and keep me interested the entire time. It was an interesting concept, but yeah, it didn't really pull me in, even though that I think that technically it was a well-made film, and the actors in it, the three leads, are really great in it. I feel like I was kind of let down overall. But what did you think of it, David?
Yeah, look, it's very, very art house. I mean, there's a reason why we saw this film at Cinema Nova. Like, it wasn't screening at Village and Hoyts. But yeah, it's interesting because I saw this only a few days after I'd seen Antlers, which was a horror that I loved, and the person I saw Antlers with said to me, wow, that was a really alternative horror. Well, Antlers is very mainstream if you can compare it to Lamb. It's a very, very weird film. It's kind of hard to classify as a genre because, it does have elements of horror, but it also has the only kind of films I can kind of like liken it to are like some of Lars von Trier's films, where the horror aspect of it is more what's going on inside your own head to like watching somebody get graphically killed on screen or something like that. Yeah, I've struggled with this, like thinking about what the director is trying to say with this film, and I've come up with everything from, is he talking about childless couples that end up having pets that they almost treat as children, which is strange to people that have kids, like that people can treat their animals that way, or is it the fact that this couple desperately needs something to stay together? I mean, it says in the description of this film that they're a happy couple, but I don't know if they are that happy. I mean, Maria seemed pretty tempted by Peter's advances at times during the film. So maybe it's a little bit of a take on the fact that they're not happy, that they need something to keep them together. But yeah, it's definitely a weird one, but I think it's one of those movies that if you're a serious cinemaphile, you need to go and watch this film just to say that you've seen it.
Yeah, it's definitely one that is really up to interpretation as to what it's about. That's the entire time watching it. I was like you. I was trying to figure out, okay, what's going on here? What is like the purpose behind this? And I think you had a better grasp on it than I did. I was thinking at certain points, I was thinking, is this some kind of like vegetarian message, like treating the way that we how we look at animals as nothing, but if we humanize them slightly, we'll treat them like they're our own children.
Yeah.
So I was probably completely off the mark, but yeah, that just kind of shows how lost I was. But I guess that goes into what what happens with their surrogate child that the family kind of adopt. It's kind of this odd hybrid of a lamb and a baby girl.
Yeah.
And as it's growing older, they kind of just take on this happy family feeling towards it, and it's all very. I guess it was. It's funny looking at it like a horror because it's very. There's some kind of tense moments early on, but the majority of the scenes between the characters, it's quite wholesome.
Yeah.
Like, what's going on? It's like it's this really kind of a disturbing thing. This is weird kind of monster child, but they're raising it like their happy family. And here's Uncle Peter is kind of weirded out by this like basically a monster until he learns to love it himself. And that's why I was kind of looking at it like it was some kind of a like some kind of I don't know, kind of a vegetarian message or something, because just that kind of a connection between animals and humans was something that kept rubbing off on me.
It's also very heavy with subtext and things that you've got to watch out for as well. Like somebody pointed out online, and I have to admit that this went right over my head, but when you look at Ada's sheep mother's tag that's on her ear, it is 3115, and a lot of people have said that is a reference to a Bible verse, Jeremiah 31:15, which talks about mothers weeping because they've lost their children. Okay. So there's like a lot of subtext and things in there. There's if you're Scandinavian, apparently at one point one of the books that Noomi Rapace's character is reading it is very important, and it ties into a certain kind of mythology that the film rests on as well. So yeah, I don't know, like the only way I can kind of describe this is it is kind of a Lars von Trier kind of a film where there's like a lot of hidden things in there. A lot of people have said that if you're Scandinavian and you can speak Icelandic, you get a lot more out of this film. as well, because there's little things put in there apparently all throughout the film, different books and stuff on shelves that mean a lot as well. But of course, you and I don't speak Icelandic, so seeing those books didn't mean anything to us.
Yeah, it's like there's obviously a meaning behind it. It just, I guess it's just something that whether you actually can figure out some kind of meaning for yourself while watching it. Because I don't want to just say, it's meaningless, because it's not. Obviously, no. Like, as you say, there's obviously there's thought into all these things, but I guess a lot of it will go over the audience's head, which is a pity, because otherwise, like the actors were great in the movie, and I thought that like visually, the cinematography in the film was amazing. Like there's so much, just the locations of the backdrop of where this couple live is just. I was just thinking throughout the entire film, wow, this is like it's such a beautiful setting for this movie, and it's throughout the entire film it just looked so beautiful. It was just that the actual message of the film or whatever just seemed I felt like it went over my head for the most part.
Yeah, I was actually going to say the director and the cinematographer has done a great job making this a beautiful film, and I say beautiful even though it kind of captures like the beauty and the bleakness of the landscape. There's a lot of shots in this film of like harsh snowstorms and the harshness of nature as well. So I think, it is. It's very, very much one of those artistic films that you kind of get the feeling it is made for the film festival circuit. Well, we're kind of lucky here in Australia that we do have cinemas like Cinema Nova or like the Palace chain or
Acme.
Yeah, and Lido, Cameo, and all of that on those ones where we actually get to see a lot of artistic films, because I speak to friends of mine in LA and I start talking about movies that I've seen and they're like, oh, I don't think that film's come out here. And you find out that in most cities of America, they have the blockbusters and they only get to see these films at festivals like the New York Film Festival or something like that. So like sometimes I'm very, very thankful that I'm in Australia, because we seem to get the best cinema from all around the world. Because we're not as prolific as a country at making films as America or Europe, we get the best of European cinema, and we also get these amazing festivals like the Scandinavian Film Festival and the German Film Festival, where we basically see the best of what that country has made that year. And I think we're just very lucky that we do have both blockbuster cinemas and artistic cinemas.
Yeah, that's the same thing. I was talking to my friend who lives in Canada, and like even just the idea of going to a drive-in. I think there's like one drive-in in his whole province. He's got to travel such a far way away just to go to a drive-in cinema, and whereas there's cinemas all over here, I guess I'm lucky. I just happen to live very nearby to a drive-in cinema, but just the idea that a drive-in cinema is a rarity is surprising to me. But that is something as well that about Australia and Melbourne in particular is there's such a rich there's so many opportunities to see different movies here that if we lived somewhere else it would completely pass us by.
Yeah, and that's why I think it is important to go along and see movies like this. I mean, this is, to me, is a very, very beautiful film, and I know a lot of people will say, oh yeah, but you like alternative kind of artistic films, but I think this is the kind of film that people can get something out of. I think if you're solely into like action films or something like that, you're not going to get very much out of this film, but I can admire this film for its creativity. Definitely the CGI on Ada Because we haven't talked too much about what happens with Ada, and that's deliberate, because I actually think that part of the power of this film is the way that the director doesn't show you straight away. I mean, I don't know about you, but I was sitting there when they were first like talking about this child and had this child there. I was like, well, show me its damn face. Like, I really had this thing where I was like, I want to see it. And I think the director did that quite well. I know that you've only got to Google like an image from the film and it comes up what Ada looks like, but I would urge people who are going to see this film not to do that.
Yeah, like there's parts where you see like what appears to just be a lamb in a crib or whatever, and it looks like that, and then later on you say, oh well, it's not exactly that, or you see something just out of focus of it moving around, and yeah, the director's done a great job of that, kind of like leading you, making you want to see this thing, and then it was really interesting that when you do, it's really just like looking beyond the obvious. It's just like looking at a kid.
Yeah.
You know, it's just like looking at a little kid beyond, other than what it looks like. You're just seeing a mother playing with her daughter, basically.
Yeah.
And that's something. I think Numi Rapace was amazing in this. Throughout the film, she shows like a variety of emotions, like going manic and happy. She's bored and distraught at times. I felt like the other two actors, they're not terrible in the film, but they didn't really get a lot to work with. Throughout the film, at least compared to Numi Rapace. And I mean, Numi Rapace, she's so, to go along with the odd feeling that you get while watching this movie, she's so great at playing this maternal role, but in a really odd, disturbing way, like she did in Angel of Mine. It's kind of something similar with that, where she's this maternal figure, but there's something kind of really creepy and off-putting about what's going on in the film. So that, I thought I really did enjoy that aspect of it. It just didn't, I guess, as you're saying, just other than for the art house market and real film connoisseurs, there's not a lot here that I think general audiences would appreciate.
Yeah, I kind of like the performance too of Hilma Snare Gunnarsson. He kind of almost has a Shane Jacobson quality to him in this film. They're very, very natural together, Numi Rapace and him. Sometimes when you watch these kind of more alternative films, because the pool of actors or actresses that are willing to do the film is a lot less, sometimes you watch them and you're like, oh, there's kind of no chemistry between those two. But I thought they actually did quite well in this film together. Like I said, I do like also that the introduction of the third character in this as well as a kind of an interesting test for the two characters, but also a test of how far are they willing to almost go to protect Ada, because there was times when there was lines that Peter said where I almost wondered if part of this movie is about what it's like being parents of a disabled child, where you're always going to have people say things like, oh, maybe you should have had an abortion, or openly make fun of the child, which Peter does at times during this film as well. And it's kind of, well, as parents, how do you react then when a grown adult is making fun of your child's disability? So yeah, there's a lot of things you could probably... Some university student will probably write a thesis on this film one day trying to understand what it's about, but yeah, there's so much there.
I don't know, it's definitely on that level, it's definitely an interesting film to watch and see what. That's why I think that for any kind of real film fan of movies, and I think it's definitely a kind of movie that's interesting to watch at least once to see if if you will get something out of it.
Yeah. I guess the big question now is, what are you going to give this film out of 5? Because I always find it really hard to grade films that are like this, that are so alternative.
Yeah, I can only say like how much I personally was entertained by it or found it interesting. I'm going to give it a 3 out of 5. Again, on a technical level, it was great. The acting was great in it. It was interesting at the start with the concept and the idea, but I felt like it never really grabbed me in the same way that other kind of alternative horror films have grabbed me. Like, again, to say like The Lighthouse or Midsommar, those are movies that, while being really weird, they kind of kept me interested the entire time. And this one I found, it kind of lost me a little bit towards the end. So I'm going to give this 3 out of 5.
Yeah. Like I said, I find these really hard to grade because, as you know, you've met one of my friends, Jim Stamatakos, and he's a very alternative filmmaker. And I'll watch some of his movies and I won't pick up on different things. But then when I talk to Jim, I find out what he meant by the film, and suddenly I see the film in a whole new light. And I feel the same with this film. If I'd had the chance to sit down and interview the director, I probably would have had a better understanding of the film. But at the same time, the average audience goer doesn't have that opportunity to interview the director and talk to him about the film either. So if I'm struggling to find what the film means, then it means that a majority of the audience are going to find the same thing. So, and one of the things that I always grade films on are they accessible to the audience, and do they achieve what they set out to do? So that's why I find grading these kind of movies really hard. I'm going to give it 3.5 out of 5 because I did like a lot of elements on it. I thought it looked really, really good, but yeah, it's a little bit difficult to try and figure out exactly what the director was trying to achieve with this film and what they were trying to say with this film. But that's it for our roundup of Lamb. Kyle gave it 3. I gave it 3.5. Go along, check it out, see what you think. Maybe you'll see something in it that we didn't do. But for now, I've been Dave G.
And I've been Kyle.
And we'll be back soon with another episode of The Popcorn Conspiracy.